Well, what we're doing here with the Lamas project is we're doing low impact development, what we call low impact development, which is about finding a new direction for our rural areas. And it's about looking at how we can use more labour and more design intensive systems rather than fossil fuel intensive systems to make our rural land more productive.
Yeah.
So we're using tools like permaculture along with simple ways of living to put people onto pieces of land which they can tend quite intensively, in contrast to modern farming, which is people scarce but fossil fuel intensive.
Right.
Instead we're looking to use more people power and particularly more design and more understanding of natural systems and how they work to make rural areas more productive.
Yeah.
We're working particularly in Pembrokeshire because at the moment Pembrokeshire is the only area in Britain which has a specific low impact development policy. So
Yeah.
there's a specific break here for a project or other projects like this one.
Yeah.
It's taken quite a lot of negotiation with Pembrokeshire County Council to finally get planning permission for this project to go ahead.
Yeah.
But we are now operating under this special policy, which is essentially means that we can develop and live on agricultural land so long as we're working that land for our livelihood and we're doing everything in an ecologically sound way.
Yeah.
So that specifically tied us to Pembrokeshire. We're
Yeah.
hoping very shortly legislation like that will be in place for Wales and hopefully the whole of Britain. At the moment it's just this county. So we put out in this county for somebody who had a piece of land who's willing to sell it for us for a project like this.
Yeah.
And we're approached by the owners of this land.
Right.
Who've been very, very supportive.
Yeah.
And they've sort of stuck with us through the long process.
Yeah.
And we finally bought the land about 9 months ago.
Fantastic. Were there also things that you, I mean, that's sort of, you put the question out and see who comes back, but were there things with regard to this particular site in terms of the type of the land, the resources available here, any of the infrastructure already in place that you were looking for in particular?
Okay. Well, there's two really major assets on this land
Yeah.
which are good for us. One is that there's a really good source of spring water, and the other is that there is an existing hydroelectric power plant here,
Right.
which is fed by an old mill lead which was constructed just over 150 years ago.
Yeah.
The hydroelectric needs a very small amount of refurbishment and connection to get that online. And
Yeah.
spring water is here and running. So those were two very good attractions to this piece of land.
Yeah.
Also, it's south-facing land. It is good land, but it is part of this massive amount of high-ish, sort of above 150 metres land, which is generally just used for grazing.
Yes.
Which is, of which there's massive amounts in Wales, and
Yeah.
the productivity of which is very low. And so we're quite keen to show that we could do this not only on a piece of the most prime agricultural
Yeah.
land and the richest land, but also that we could do it in the land that is typically available and widely unused.
Yeah.
And that we can, the topsoil is fairly thin, but what we can do is we can work with that, recondition it, and we can build more topsoil and things like that. So we can actually take
Yeah.
land which has only for the last couple of decades been regarded as only suitable for grazing.
Yeah.
We can actually bring it into a system which is more productive.
Yeah. So if you're going to change the topsoil, how would you go about doing that sustainably?
Okay, well, for starters, we've taken the sheep off it, which
Yeah.
it's been overgrazed constantly for about 25 years. And
Yeah.
modern stocking ratios are so high that it does have a very severe effect on the soil.
Yeah.
We're doing lots of things like planting trees which are bringing in nutrient cycling into the soil. We're seeding the soil with mycorrhizal fungi, which also assist all those connections between the different plants and elements of the soil. And then we're building up the soil by using things like green manures and nitrogen fixing plants and introducing more organic matter.
Yeah.
And, growing lots of nitrogen rich shrubs and then cutting them and putting them back onto the soil and doing a large composting
Yeah.
to build up the property.
So the saplings that are up there, I took a little pan of those earlier on, and I was sitting there thinking, well, those are probably for more wood, but are they also about changing the infrastructure of the soil there as well then?
Okay, well, it's part of a permaculture design that,
Yeah.
that every element within that design will be serving more than one function.
Yes.
So the willows that you were looking up there, they're doing many functions. They're going to provide us with firewood.
Mm-hmm.
They're also making a windbreak, which will help to create a microclimate.
Got that one.
Behind there, which we will be using to grow forest gardens and cereal crops, and they're also demarking the field, and it's a wood we can work with as a craft wood also. Yeah.
Okay. And beyond natural resource, what have been the main priorities for expenditure? Well, not even beyond that. What have been? What have you sort of spent big money on?
Well, as a group project, our main expenditures are number one, trackways, because we want to get access to the land.
Yeah.
We're still using cars and vehicles, so we've put in some tracks, and that means we can walk around in the winter time without being up to our knees in mud. And following that, provision of water and electricity are the main things which we're working on centrally. And then there's individual families who have individual holdings in the project. Their main expenditures will probably be their buildings predominantly, although we're putting up our dwelling now, which we expect to cost somewhere between £2,000 and £3,000
for the whole dwelling.
For the whole dwelling. So the costs are minimal throughout, and different people are taking different approaches. It's not necessary that it has to be so cheap, but I think that what we're doing is trying to look at what our needs are. So we have a need for shelter, we have a need for a warm, dry space. How can we provide that need from the resources that are here on the land? We've got good resources of wood, we've got good resources of clay, we've got stone, so we can use those materials to build something which provides for our shelter, rather than saying I need a house and look to what the marketplace is providing as a house. So I think that's one theme which is running throughout, which is very important for the way our expenditure pans out. Is instead of looking at what are the products available, which one am I going to choose, we're looking at what are my needs, how can I satisfy those needs from the resources that I have available to me.
Yeah. So most of the time it seems that what you're buying in are tools to do things rather than products to actually...
Yes, that's certainly true. We've been doing a fantastic amount of tool making here recently as well.
Oh yeah.
We're on the building site, but we've, as well as bringing in some tools, and I've brought in a load of nails yesterday, but we've put together mallets and things out of bits of wood, and I've got a small homemade forge on the site, so we can make some tools there and keep things going.
Oh wow.
Although it doesn't
can we see that a bit later on? That'd be brilliant. Thank you.